207. Let's get to Three from Hell, which is the third film in the Firefly trilogy. Besides being done by Zombie, came out in 2019, stars essentially the same people: Sherry Moon Zombie, Sid Haig, Richard Brake, Kevin Jackson, same old group. And the synopsis is: after barely surviving prison, the demented Firefly clan go on the run, unleashing a whole new wave of murder, madness, and mayhem. So this one was a first-time watch for me. I remember when it came out, it got kind of mixed reviews, and I just forgot about it. And then after having watched the first two films, I was curious to see this one for sure. And to just put it out there, at this point, this is definitely my least favorite Rob Zombie movie. And easily my least favorite of the three, which that seems to be the popular opinion. I just feel like the main issue with this one is that with House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, stylistically, those movies feel very, very different, even story-wise, to a certain degree. And in this one, it really just feels like a retread of the Devil's Rejects, but a lesser version. As 31 was in some ways, a greatest hits of Rob Zombie, it feels like by the time I got to this one, I was just thinking, man, like I'm really ready to get through all of these movies. And it's not really a mark or a jab at Rob Zombie. I just feel like this one really was disappointing. And one of the worst things about it was I just found it to be fairly dull. Like there is not a lot going on story-wise. For one, the way in which they survived the shooting, which you see at the end of Devil's Rejects, makes no sense. There's not really an explanation of that. And also, it does kind of not ruin Devil's Rejects, but ruins how cool and insane that ending is, where they go out in a blaze of bullets and you're like, okay, cool. They had their escape, their freedom, they caused mayhem for a while, but they met their demise. That's a perfect end to that film, as I said. But it is completely nonsensical that they just are up and about again, which it's called Three from Hell, so maybe he's inferring that somehow they were resurrected, but there's no real backstory, explanation, any of that to help me understand or get behind that. I do like the prison sequence, and then the escape is good. But once it gets out into the countryside, just them causing mayhem, madness, it's very little to nothing new, Rob Zombie style-wise, narrative-wise. Like I said, it being a retread of Devil's Rejects, there's the greatest hits of that movie, like the motel sequence, there's a brothel sequence, like it's all just, why are we seeing this? That was my inner mindset during this viewing. I was like, why did you make this? What purpose are you serving? Because if you want to make a third movie in this trilogy, that's fine, even though it doesn't really work logically. If you do it right, I'm fine with that, but I really feel like he lost himself in this, or maybe he was catering to what he thought fans wanted, or I don't know exactly, but a few specifics. I did a few positives here. The Natural Born Killers inspiration, it seems, the Oliver Stone inspiration of using the news footage to tell the story, at least in the beginning, and it's documentary style-esque. I like that. You could call it a gimmick, but I think it worked in the context of the movie. Sherry Moon Zombie is solid. Once again, she really gets to go all out in this, go crazy nuts, especially in that second half, which she does overall well, I would say. Like, maybe doesn't always have the knack for making all that seem authentic, but she did so more often than not. Other than that, though, it is way too long. I think it's the longest of the three. It's almost 2 hours. And I'm just thinking, of all the three movies, you made this one the longest. Why? Oh, and there's also one little note. I don't know if this is a widely known thing, but the actor who played Captain Spaulding, he's not in it that much because he had very bad health problems around the time of making this, and so his role was cut way, way down, so they had to introduce a different character to fill that spot. So he's only in it for a little bit, which, hey, you can't do anything about that. But it's at least nice to see him for the time that he's there. Overall, I really don't have that much else to say about it. It is one that I might go back and revisit at some point if I am watching the whole trilogy together, but largely forgettable. And I'm glad that, as we'll get to it, the Munsters, he took a break in the biggest, like, 180 way from this style of film, and he says that he is done with the Firefly trilogy. Thank goodness. Because I can promise you, there's nothing else there, and I'm tired of... I don't mind that he's using the trope, the writing choice of playing the sympathy for the devil vibe, which is much more successful in the first two, whereas in this one, it's really just, here, love these villains, love these killers, and there's so little to nothing to actually try and get us to care that doesn't feel really, really manipulative or just feels downright coarse and ugly for attempting that after all that they've done in these three movies. So that one is a heavy 2.5 out of 5.